Hello students, I welcome you back to Unit 4 of Professional Ethics. If you recall, in the previous sessions we had discussed an engineer's responsibility towards minimizing risk and enhancing safety to make technologies, to make projects safe and user-friendly for the society. So in today's session, as an extension of that, let us look at an engineer's rights and responsibilities. So in today's sessions, I am going to look at engineer's responsibilities and engineer's rights. And under this, we will be discussing what are the different responsibilities of an engineer, like respect for authority, collective bargaining, confidentiality, conflict of interest, occupational crime, and under professional rights we shall discuss professional rights and employee rights, IPR, intellectual property rights, and right against discrimination. These are some of the key components we shall be discussing in today's unit. So now, first before we get started with the rights and responsibilities, let us look at an engineer as a professional. So if you remember, in the earlier units we had discussed what do we mean by a profession and why do we consider engineering to be a profession. So engineering is a profession because it requires special training, and an engineering employment is not like any other profession where you can have a trial and error method or you can learn on the job. For example, your local mechanic may not need a special training because he starts with some rudimentary tools and then he learns the profession, he learns the trade on the job. But an engineer is one who designs products and services that will be applied in the society. So if an engineer makes an erroneous judgment or manufactures a faulty product or makes a flaw in the design, that mistake could prove to be extremely costly for the society. Hence, engineers require special training so that they should have special knowledge, special skills, and they should also have a broad holistic approach towards the welfare of the society, and of course most importantly in the context of this unit, they should also have a strong affinity for the society with an ethical base, a rational application of their trade or of their skill for the benefit and welfare of the society. So this is what we mean by a profession. A professional is one who requires special training. A professional is one who has a distinct identity. A professional is one who belongs to a certain fraternity, a certain group, and which has a distinct identity for itself in the society. So when we talk about engineer as a professional, we should remember that a professional is one who maintains a high standard of professional ethics or behavior, and while he is carrying out his work activities, he should apply these standards, high standards, and also his ethics in delivering his duties or in delivering his or performing his responsibilities in an organization. So when we talk about an engineer as a professional, we should remember that an engineer should also have a reasonable work morale. That means he should have high levels of motivation, and he should also have a affinity for his fellow beings, and he should with great motivation and with great empathy for the people living in the society, he should design products and services. So his morale and motivation should be always high, and only then he can deliver quality services or quality products for the organization first and the society in general. Apart from that, an engineer should also maintain workplace ethics and etiquette. He should have a sense of comradeship with his fellow beings at the workplace. He should have a sense of, in the first unit we had discussed, He should have qualities like cooperation, sharing, caring, so that he belongs to a certain team and he is able to carry out the work. We also learned in the earlier units that engineering is a profession which has multifarious applications, and no one person can do the entire job end to end, whether it is in an IT firm or whether it is in a manufacturing firm. A team of people do the designing, do the production, do the quality control, and do the marketing or commercially promote the product. So in preparing an engineering product and in delivering it to the society, there are so many functions involved. So when an engineer is working in a larger organization, he should have an appreciation for the work that his colleagues are doing and be able to fit into the team to deliver the work with the cooperation of the team. So in that sense, we talk about his behavior, his attitude, and his interpersonal relations should all be very professional, and it should help him to not only prosper in and flourish in his work, but it should also enable and promote other people to perform their best. So team dynamics and this sense of collegium that we will be discussing, collegiality, is very, very important. He should always remember that he is a part of a larger fraternity of engineers, and his attitude and his way of conducting himself will reflect overall on the profession of engineering. So he should be always conducting himself with a high sense of decorum, with a sense of self-esteem, and he should not do anything that will lower the value of his profession. Just like a doctor is bound by certain code of ethics, certain standards in his profession. A lawyer is guided by certain code of ethics in his profession. Likewise, an engineer is also guided by a certain code of ethics and a certain kind of professionalism in his profession. So a profession is one who is an expert, a master in a specific field, and an engineer should remember that he has the expertise, he has the mastery of a certain body of knowledge, certain set of skills with which he can design products to improve the comfort and well-being of the society. So he should accept both responsibility and accountability for the decision he makes at the workplace. He is bound by certain standards, bound by certain code of ethics, and bound by certain rules and certain laws of the country, within the framework of which he has to conduct his work and his operations. So this is something we need to remember, which is true not only of engineering but any profession. A professional is one who is having an expert knowledge or authority on a certain subject or on a certain skill, but is also bound by certain laws or certain code of conduct in conducting himself in that profession. So then what are the benefits for being a professional engineer? An engineer, when he decides to commit himself to these standards, to these rules and regulations, that framework of rules and regulations that are operating in the engineering field, what are his benefits? Why should he adhere to those rules? Why should he conform to the guidelines or the standards? Because he has all these benefits. In performing his duties within that set of parameters or that frameworks or that engineering standards, he derives highest level of job satisfaction. He comes to be recognized as a person who maintains high standards, and his reputation grows in his field, and he becomes a venerable professional whose reputation will carry far and wide. Likewise, he also gets, and this reputation will open up many more career opportunities to him. Not only in the current organization where he is working, he will get a better scope for improving and rising to the higher echelons of his organization, but he will also be sought after by other competitors who will seek him out for his excellent skills and the high standards he always maintains. So he will have a variety of career opportunities, he will get challenging work, he will have exciting and challenging projects to take up because all these things will come his way, and any project he bids for, he will have it because of the high reputation, and he is known to be a man of standards. And it will also help him in intellectually growing and developing himself. This is another opportunity if an engineer maintains high standards and maintains professionalism at his job. And he will be able to, through his professionalism, by exploring new opportunities, taking up bigger challenges, engineering complex solutions, he will be able to provide better solutions to the society, and thereby he will be able to bring some transformation to the place where he lives by providing better quality of products and services. He will also enjoy high level of financial security. With his professional success, he will also make lot of money, lot of reputation, and that will accrue to his professional prestige, and he will become a legend in his field. Apart from that, he also helps to build a healthy ecosystem. By being a professional and by adhering to high standards, he also promotes within the organization or within the region where he works high level of professional environment, which will again attract many more experts, and thereby the whole region will benefit from this professional environment. Or a healthy ecosystem can be contributed by a set of engineers maintaining high standards in their profession, practicing according to the framework of engineering standards. And then he will also become a part of breakthroughs, scientific and technological breakthroughs. By taking up interesting challenges, he can come out with new solutions which could make a lasting impact on the field, and his work could set a precedent for future engineers to follow and improve upon. Apart from that, he gets the highest satisfaction because of the opportunity it gives him for doing creative thinking out of the box, exploring solutions by looking at the problem with new perspectives. These are some of the benefits an engineer is able to get by exhibiting professionalism at his job. So these are the reasons why an engineer should always aim at being good at his job and improving his expertise, and thereby becoming more and more professional. So now let us look at the responsibilities. We had discussed in the beginning of this session that we will be talking about responsibilities and rights of an engineer in an organization. So while practicing his profession, an engineer will have to undertake many responsibilities, and his or her responsibilities do not confine only to improving the safety features and minimizing the risk. It is not simply risk-benefit analysis he has to do at his job to make the product safe and to make the product accessible or user-friendly. He has to do much more than that. We will discuss those things in a minute. So it is not only to prevent accidents and to protect the users, or to ensure the safety and the satisfaction of the users who are using that technology or that service, but he has to do many more things than that. So his responsibilities are of two kinds. They are internal responsibilities as well as external responsibilities. So we will see what do we mean by internal responsibilities and external responsibilities. Internal responsibilities are the responsibilities to the organization, to the employers, which provides him the opportunity to work. Those are considered to be internal responsibilities. And external responsibilities are to the general societies, to the rest of the world. Not only to the organization, his first commitment is to the organization, but his larger commitment is also to the society or to the external world, where these products that he in his and his organization are manufacturing or preparing for the benefit of the society. So an engineer's job is twofold. He has to always constantly negotiate between these two worlds, the internal world of the organization where he is working and the external world, that is the general society or the country for which he is producing these products and services, or even for the entire globe. So these are some things we need to always keep in mind. So when we talk about internal responsibilities, we already discussed, it means responsibilities to the organization or to the employers who is hiring him and who is giving him wages for his specialized skills to perform at the job and to deliver the products and services which the organization is providing in the market. So in today's competitive world, the success of any organization, we already discussed, depends upon team play. An engineer should always be led by a sense of cooperation, sharing. He should remember that he has to be a good team player, and he also is a part of the engineering profession or fraternity, and so all these things indirectly influence him to conduct his responsibilities with a certain discipline. So, and working effectively on the project requires the ethics, and team play involves virtues of collegiality, loyalty, respect for authority and collective bargaining. All these are parts of an engineer's internal responsibilities. So an engineer, while he is working in an organization, has to be a good team player, and he has to be mindful about all these aspects of his job. Okay, so what do we mean by collegiality? So collegium, it is a part of any professional, any profession. You have a collegium if you talk about law profession, the Bar Council of India, and how lawyers in the High Court and Supreme Court, okay, are inducted and promoted or transferred. All this is a fraternity. That means it is the highest profession, and they don't need any regulatory body. They regulate themselves. So an engineering profession is also like that. They maintain collegiality. So you have different professional bodies like IEEE. We'll be discussing that at the end of the session. So you have Indian Institute of Chemical Engineers, you have Institute of Mechanical Engineers, you have IEEE, Institute of Electronic and Electrical Engineers. These are some of the professional bodies. So these bodies are kind of fraternities where engineers take membership. They are part of they are members of these professional bodies, which help them to govern themselves and conduct themselves with responsibilities. That means they are of the highest profession, and these bodies, this collegium helps them to conduct themselves with a discipline. They are constantly made aware of their responsibility to the society and to the organization, and by being a member of this collegium, they are constantly made mindful about the right for them to conduct themselves with extreme responsibility in the society. So it is a tendency to support and cooperate with colleagues. So you belong to a fraternity, and within the organization you belong to a team. So when you are a part of this collegiality or collegium, means you, by belonging to that group or belonging to that team, you need to conduct yourself in such a way that you cooperate with others, you give support to the others, and you take the support and cooperation of the others in conducting your professional responsibilities. So there is this engineering professional thinker who says that Craig Ihara defines collegiality as a kind of connectedness grounded in respect for professional expertise, in a commitment to the goals and values of the profession. So what does it mean? Look at the keywords here. A professional who is grounded in respect. Grounded means established in the professional expertise. He is a part of a body or fraternity of engineers who enjoy some expertise, a specialized knowledge or skill, and because he enjoys these skills, he needs to be committed to the goals, whether the goals of the organization which employs him, goals of the society, or goals of the nation which is striving to be a technological superpower and advance in this world. So, goals and values of his profession. So, what are the professional goals and values of engineers? That is something a professional should always know and should conduct himself by orienting himself to those goals and maintaining the same sense of commitment for the organization as well as for the country at large. So, when we talk about the elements of collegiality, we have already discussed. First thing is, the engineer has to respect the ideas and work of others. If you are going to work in an IT firm, you will be part of a project team. So, you have project briefing, you have project meetings. In the meetings, you should share your ideas. What if you have some ideas for carrying out the work in a more cost effective way, in a faster way, in a with a better standard of quality of service, then you need to share your ideas. Likewise, if others have ideas to bring to the table, you need to listen to them with respect and you need to apply those ideas if they are better ideas than yours at the job. So, respect the ideas and work of others and conduct yourself with the spirit of support and cooperation. So, we already discussed in a big team, when you are working, you need to synergize. Synergy means add up the energies and add up the creativity of all the individual members, so that the sum total of the work done is far superior than the individual work that individual employees can offer to the organization. So, this is very important. So, respecting the ideas of others and also giving value to what the others share at the meeting is very important. That is what we mean by first element of collegiality. Then commitment to moral principles. That means we need to be moral in our we need to maintain morality in the way we take decisions, we plan our actions and we pursue the goals of the organization. We should not in any way violate the ethics, the code of ethics that is dictated by the organization or by the profession. And we need to maintain connectedness. That means we always need to have a mutual understanding. We need to have a relationship of professional relationship of give and take, and this connectedness, okay, this shared commitment, it is what ensures the progress for you as well as the others in the organization, mutually helping each other so that everybody can grow together on the job. These are some of the elements of collegiality: respect to the ideas, commitment to moral principles and connectedness. So, as we already discussed, collegiality is an influential way to promote the aims of the profession. So, that is why it is so important trait to maintain a sense of collegiality at your job, and it is more valuable as many individuals jointly work for the goodness of the public and the society. If you are building a mega project, taking up a mega project like a big dam or big highway project or a bridge, a public bridge, so there so many people will be working together for an extended period of time. So if this spirit of cooperation and mutual support is missing, the project will obviously fail, or if it doesn't fail immediately, the quality of the service or the quality of the product will be much more inferior in quality than what can be produced if everybody is committed towards one goal and working together with a sense of mutual cooperation and support. So that is what it helps to influence each other and keep everybody motivated to strive for a common goal, so that the mega project, when it is carried out, comes out, shapes out in the qualitative way in which it was visualized. It was first envisaged when you designed that project. So that is very important. And then, so collegiality is a important element. It helps to influence others, keep up the motivation, keep up the esteem of the profession and keep everybody committed to the goal of the team or goal of the group which is working on a project. But then it is also criticized sometimes that it has certain negative or undesirable traits. So collegiality also has its negative aspects. So very often there is a criticism against collegiality that this sense of group identity as or group professional identity can be misused or it can be distorted, and it may sometimes degenerate into groups of self-interest. So sometimes it can be used for manipulating decisions, it could be used for maybe even carrying out occupational crimes. So this is sometimes, so instead of being mindful about the public good that it is expected to serve, it could very easily degenerate into self-interest. And it may sometimes focus on a corporate goal of maximizing profit. So engineers may sometimes get carried away. So a sense of strong group affinity within an organization may make these engineers completely identify themselves only with the organizational goals at the cost of the general well-being of the society. As a result, what can happen is they may think only about, they may driven, as most organizations are, business organization, even engineering firms operate for business. They are selling a product or a service to a client and they are making money out of it. So sometimes this sense of collegiality may create very strong teams who will operate purely on group interest and organizational interest, and they will be only led by the profit motto, which may sometimes be detrimental to the welfare of the society. So these are some of the negative, this is some of the negative criticism that is passed against collegiality. So now, talking about loyalty. So when you talk about loyalty, every employee, an engineer who joins an organization has to conduct himself with a sense of commitment, and he should have trust and faith and gratitude for the organization which is employing him, providing him opportunity to work, practice his profession and also make a career out of it. So when we say somebody offers a job, takes a job offer, what do they owe the company? They owe the company loyalty. So we talk about agency loyalty. What do we mean by agency loyalty? That means the agent, the engineer who is an agent employed by the organization has to be committed to the organization which is hiring him or employing him. So he has to show faithfulness towards the company which is hiring him. So he has to fulfill contractual duties. So when an engineer joins, if you all get placed, you may join IT firms like TCS or Wipro or Accenture or Cognizant. So when you join the organization, you sign a certain contract with the company, and when you sign the contract specifies certain professional duties or responsibilities which will come in as a part of your job description. So you have to show loyalty. Once you accept the job, you have to be loyal to the firm and you have to fulfill your contractual duties or obligations for which you have been hired, and you have to not only commit yourself to the job, but you have to perform to the best of your ability for the organizational growth. This is what we mean by loyalty. You have to be loyal, you have to be faithful, and you have to be committed to the organization in deploying your skills, your knowledge, your expertise for performing the job in the best possible way, so that you give the customer or the client utmost satisfaction, and so that the organization can be compensated for this service or the product delivered and make profit out of it. This is a part of your professional loyalty. And what about corporate loyalty to employees? So the organization likewise also needs to have some commitment towards its employees, that is the engineers. So they should also, an employee who is performing well his professional duties satisfactorily should not be fired. For instance, now we are all passing through pandemic, corona period. So during this period, even high performing organizations have given pink slip to their employees because they are not in a position to get projects, and so they don't want to run into loss. So as a cost cutting measure, some even well performing employees have been laid off. So this is something. So an organization and a corporate loyalty is nothing but the organizational loyalty towards the employee. Just as the employee has to show agency loyalty to the organization which hires him, which provides him opportunity to pursue his career, the corporate also has to show loyalty towards its employees and safeguard their interests. So another thing is the attitude loyalty. When we say attitude loyalty, these are the things which the term is self-explanatory. As an attitude loyalty, you have to be willing to perform your abilities or duties to the best of your ability. You should seek to perform your duties. Look for opportunities to give your best to the organization. You should always show positive motivation, high enthusiasm at the job. You should not be passive, or you should not be a reluctant employee looking for ways to shirk work or escape from hard projects. You should show enthusiasm, and you should not be compelled to do a job for which you are being hired and paid such a fat salary. And over long periods of time, but it is challenging to maintain this good attitude because organizations also work with high deliverables. As a result, very often employees feel stressed because they feel that they are overworked and underpaid. Over a period of time, the employees may get a certain sense of familiarity with the job or with the organization. The initial charm or enthusiasm or motivation may gradually wear off, and slowly it is possible that the employee may show less enthusiasm towards the job he or she has taken up. So these are some of the things that you, and also code of ethics. So when we talk about code of ethics, it is a very important part of engineering code of ethics that an organization which gives you opportunities to pursue your career, and engineering professionals are highly rewarded and highly paid, particularly IT professionals, they are very handsomely paid. So they need to maintain loyalty, agency loyalty towards the organization which is rewarding them so well. So that is a part of their code of ethics. Their commitment to the employers is of utmost importance or paramount importance. So talking about engineers will start as techies. In the initial phase of your career, you may be given entry level job where you will be performing a technical job, and gradually over a period of time you become more versatile and you begin to look after many more functions and you may become managers. So engineers can also become managers. So whether you are managers or whether you are engineers, you should always show respect for executive authority. Why should you show? Because your demands for professionalism and appropriate professional tone, okay, is set by the boss. The boss is one who is a seasoned or a senior person who has grown from the lowest rung of the organization and has reached a certain managerial level or a certain executive level. So the employer is someone who hires you, but there will be certain line of people in the organizational hierarchy or structure who will be exercising supervisory powers over your work and guiding you to perform your best in your work. So when you talk about this, you should remember that you should have respect for executive authorities. You should show your professionalism in that sense. And expert authority is important because it is a key aspect of professionalism, something that should always be respected. That means you have to, if you are at the middle level, you have to respect your top boss. If you are at the lower level, you have to respect your middle layer boss, because organizations always carry out work with a structured hierarchy for delivering different kinds of different nature of jobs at different levels of the structure, organizational structure. So you should show respect for your executive authority. This is important. So managers and engineers have to work together. Managers are people who are managing a section, a department, or a particular function in which there may be a team working. And while these teams are working on the diversified nature of the job, you need to remember that there has to be a manager, somebody who coordinates and who synchronizes the different aspects of the job that different teams bring in. So these projects, which are huge projects, are chunked and given to different teams, and managers are the people who coordinate the work of the different teams and bring it and integrate it to deliver it to the customer. So employees have to show loyalty and should show respect to the executive authority. So that is what we mean. Respect for authority means decisions are taken by the top brass. There are people sitting up there who take the major decisions that affect the productivity or that influence the nature of the work that is going to be taken up by the organization. So when you take this up, you should remember that decisions that are taken by few people at the top have to be executed and have to be carried out by the people who are in the lower layers of the organization, who are also engineers. So the entire line of professionals working in the different layers of the organizational structure or the hierarchy have to show respect for the top authority. So the authority flows top down and the responsibility has to be executed bottom up. So this is a very, very important principle of the workplace, what would you say, hierarchy. So these are things you need to keep in mind. So effectively and efficiently transferring decisions from the top to the bottom is done, as we discussed, by the managers, and the engineers need to take the orders and carry out the work according to the specifications given by the managers. You will all, once you get into IT firms, you will all, or get into manufacturing firms, you will all become acquainted with this. So there is a project manager who is chunking the work and who is giving you the specified kind of jobs. You need to do it and you need to hand it over to the manager. So a respect for authority and a clear line of execution is very, very critical for the organizational success to deliver quality products at the job. Then institutional authority, likewise you should show respect for authority, and institution also gives you authority, because as engineers you will be working as foremen, you will be working as line managers, you will be working as project managers. So you will be given different responsibilities and you will have people who will give you the work from above, and you will also have people who will be working below you to carry out the work. So you will take the specifications given by the boss, you will disseminate the information and distribute the duties to the team members whom you are managing, and the institution gives you the authority to carry out the work, whether it is sharing of resources, distributing the resources, carrying if there is some expense involved, doing the expenses, working out the logistics, making critical decisions for the chunk of the work that is given to you. So you have to show respect for the authority, and you have to also derive the institutional authority. The institution also gives you, authorizes you with certain decision making power to conduct the work in the way it is supposed to be conducted. So this is also a responsibility of the engineer. And expert authority, what do we mean by expert authority? That means over a period of time you may have specialized knowledge. You may be an expert in the field, and by virtue of being an expert in the field, suppose you are a design engineer, you have done a specialization in design. So design engineers are not many. Design engineers are people who have high levels of creativity and who are very good at problem solving, and they have a very, very holistic view about designing a product or a service to resolve an engineering problem. So when you talk about expert authority, people who are equipped with those kind of skills, who are experts at the job, will be held in high esteem, and they will be in a position to influence and guide and provide solutions to the others, who will take the suggestions given by them and execute the project. So by virtue of being an expert at a field or mastery over a certain field, you get the authority to provide advice, professional guidance to the others, and that is also an important responsibility. That is also a internal responsibility. Using your expertise and authorizing others to carry out the work in certain way by sharing your expertise is what we mean by expert authority. The act of being, or the sheer fact of being an expert at the job, or being more knowledgeable and skilled at the job, will provide you the authority to give guidance to others and to see that the work is executed in a certain way. This is also a part of an internal responsibility. Coming to collective bargaining, what do we mean by collective bargaining in an organization, especially in manufacturing units or where products and services? It is very, very common that sometimes employees, that is engineers, need to negotiate for their demands or needs. Very often you will find that today, when we are living in the capitalistic society, large organizations having hundreds of or lakhs of workforce may not be very, very, what would you say, just or fair to their employees at all times. So though the company may be making huge profits, they may be not so willing to share the profits with their employees. So in such instances, collective bargaining becomes a avenue for the engineers to take up. So what do we mean by collective bargaining? It is the bargain by the trade union. So trade union means people who are pursuing a trade or a profession. They form into unions and they bargain with the employer to give them better salaries, to give them better work conditions, to give them more amenities at the workplace, and so that they can be, or to reduce the number of working hours, to reduce the load, to give more holidays. All these are part of the collective bargaining. So or give them higher quarterly bonuses, or give them good hikes on an annual basis. These are all demands that engineers will have to see that the products and services which they are preparing and putting to the service of the society and earning profits for the organization, they also get some part of it, their due or just share of it. So this is what we mean by collective bargaining. A bargain by a trade union for improving the economic interests of the working members. So engineers are very often technicians, polytechnics who are working in the engineering firms, they are often paid lower salaries compared to the other employees. So they may use this bargaining power by joining into unions, by joining forces. They may form into large groups and start negotiating with the organization to see that they get more, they are treated more fairly in terms of just wages, proper working hours, and as per the labor laws of the country, and so on. So this process includes negotiation, it includes sometimes threatening verbally, and sometimes if these things don't work, even declaring a strike and shutting down the operations. This is what happens when engineers or when workers, they participate in what would you say, collective bargaining. And it is impossible to endorse. So, but however, collective bargaining for engineers, maybe it is often discussed in engineering ethics that collective bargaining is something, or joining unions and going on strikes is something that engineers should refrain from doing, because they are higher level of employees. They should not do anything that disrupts the working of the organization or that prevents organizations from conducting their operations smoothly and harmoniously. So it is not advisable for engineers to join unions or to declare strikes. They can negotiate, but they should do it in a harmonious way so that it does not disrupt the functioning of the engineering firm or the corporation. And there exists conflicting views about it. Many people argue that doing collective bargaining, joining unions and declaring strikes are not part of engineering professional ethics. Engineering ethics dictate that an engineer should never participate in any such disruptive activities because it goes against collegium, it goes against loyalty, and it goes against respect for authority, which are the responsibilities of engineer. So this is something that collective bargaining is probably affecting organizations in preventing the work done, and it may prove to be loss, leading to loss or disruption of the services. So arguments over unions, as I said, there are two arguments, both in favor and against unions. In favor of unions is that it is very vital, it is very important. Engineering firms in capitalistic society always operate on business principles, and they garner high profits, but they are very stingy, or they pay very meager salaries to the workers who are helping to bring out those products and earn the profits for the company. So they think that this collective bargaining is what is helping them to achieve high salaries and improved standard of living of the employees. This is the argument in favor of collective bargaining, that if you don't negotiate and bargain, employers never heed the employees' requirements and they never treat them justly. And they also argue that those who in favor of collective bargaining say that it gives employees a greater sense of participation in the organization decision making. So when they declare their requirements and demands, how much working hours is acceptable to them, and what is the kind of quarterly bonus they expect, what kind of stock shares they would like the organizations to give them for good quarterly dividends brought to the company. All these things helps them in the decision making and in influencing the top management. That is how, so they see it as a tool for empowerment, and they think that it acts as a counter force to any radical political movements that exploit employees. So they think that this bargaining tool, collective bargaining, becomes a tool for them to counteract the exploitative practices that many business firms, engineering firms carry out in order to get higher profits by paying lower wages to the workforce. But people who are against, people who argue that it is not part of engineering ethics, and according to engineering ethics this collective bargaining cannot be acceptable. They say that it affects the economy of the country. If engineering firms, for everything they decide to go on, declare strikes and they disrupt the work, then products and services, engineering firms which are in business, if they cannot produce the products or services in the time frame promised to the client or the customer, it could lead to loss of credibility for the organization. It could make the organization lose its business, and it could even lead to, in extreme cases, shutting down the operations of the organization itself. So this proves to be extremely harmful even for the employees who participate in this kind of union strikes. And it also causes lot of stress or tension between the different layers of the organization. So there is conflict and there is strife between the employers and the employees, and it results in loss of harmonious and smooth operations and relations between the employer and the employee. So this is the argument against collective bargaining. So we must remember that. So talking about now, we were discussing about rights, and we will discuss external responsibilities, but before that we must remember that engineers are also human beings. Before they are professionals, they are human beings. So they are also able to demand for certain human rights. What are the kinds of human rights that engineers have? like any other human rights, they have certain moral entitlements. They have to be treated justly, fairly, and the engineering firms or any kind of operations that treat them in a dehumanized way cannot be acceptable to the engineers. So what are the rights, human rights, common human rights? Not only engineers, people, any human being who is living in a civilized society has basic human rights. Some of the basic human rights which are directly accrued to an engineer by virtue of being a human being are right to pursue legitimate personal interest. An engineer also has his own personal goals. Apart from his professional goals, he has his personal interest. So that is one human right. We will see how it affects the workplace or why it should be safeguarded even in the organizational life. So right to make a living, right to privacy, right to property, right to non-discrimination and right against sexual harassment, right to non-bias and non-harassment. These are some of the basic human rights that any engineer by virtue of being a human being is entitled to wherever he is working. So he is a human being first, and so these basic human or fundamental human rights automatically accrue to him as a part of living in the civilized society. Then what are the professional rights? We already discussed. Professional rights are those provisions which protect him from right to form and express professional judgment. An engineer who has a specialized knowledge or expertise in a certain subject or domain, he has the right to express his professional expertise or judgment and use it for doing his job in a qualitatively better way. And he has the right to participate. If the firm in which he is working, his employer or boss asks him to do something unethical or something that violates the standards of engineering profession, then he has the right to say no. He can refuse to participate in such unethical practices. And he has the right to fair recognition and receive remuneration. So we will talk about intellectual property rights. Any kind of new product that an engineer has helped an engineering firm to invent or to design, if that product clicks and it makes lot of revenue or lot of income for the company, then the engineer who helped to invent that product or design that solution has a right to get his legal share, his rightful share in the profits that are generated by that product. That is very important. And right to due process from employer. Right to due process means if there is any kind of conflict of interest or any kind of conflict between the employer and employee and the employer removes him, then the employer cannot straight away arbitrarily remove him from the job. The employer has to give him valid reasons for why he is being suspended or give him memos, give him clear indication what is acceptable, what is not acceptable, and follow the legal process, whether it is in recruiting or whether it is in removing him from the job. So he has the right to take legal redress, and the employer has to give him access to the due process in conducting himself or in even while firing him. This is important. And right to equal opportunity. Due process involves in hiring, firing as well as in promoting. An employer has, by virtue of being a part of a profession, has the right to this due process. Right to equal opportunity. So that means he should not be discriminated against. There should be no discrimination where some engineers who belong to a certain race or certain caste or certain class or certain nationality or certain gender, irrespective of whatever his gender, caste, color, religious or ethnic identity may be, he should be given fair and equal opportunities for growth and promotion in the organization. He should be given equal wages. He should be given equal opportunities to flourish and prosper in his profession. Right to equal opportunity also means non-sexual harassment. There should be no discrimination based on, it should be, workplace should be safe place for women, Okay, they should be able to go safely. Even if they are working in night shift, they should have free and comfortable space to work with. They should not feel threatened or intimidated to work in the odd hours. And right to equal opportunity also involves affirmative action or preferential treatment. That means for a country like India, there is certain reservation policy. That means people of certain historically underprivileged sections of the society who have been oppressed, to enable them to grow and attain equality, equal social status, the government has made certain special provisions like reservations in education and jobs. So these kind of affirmative action, if they are granted to them by the government, that should also be extended by the employer to the employee. So these are some of the basic professional rights which an engineer is entitled to when he is joining a firm. Now coming back to responsibilities, we discussed internal responsibilities. Now let us look at external responsibilities. External responsibilities are those responsibilities which an engineer has to express or exhibit to the rest of the society, to the outside world. Not internal responsibilities we discussed are to the organization to which he belongs. External responsibilities are to the society at large. And what are these external responsibilities? One is related to confidentiality, another is conflict of interest and occupational crimes. Let us understand what they are one by one. So confidentiality, what do we mean by confidentiality? It means that an engineer, when he joins an engineering firm, has to accept as a term of condition that any kind of proprietary information, whether it has to do with the production of a good, whether it is an engineering process, whether it is a kind of service, whatever it may be, whether it is in terms of the information on the market, the new kinds of products or services, or the new markets that or whether it is contracts, new contracts, tenders, biddings, auctions, any kind of proprietary information that belongs to an organization and it needed for the organization to grow and flourish over the competitors in the who are also operating in the same market or space, then an engineer, by taking that, accepting the contract, is committed to retain that information in a confidential way, keep it secretive and not share it or not be responsible for revealing it to the competitor firm or any other agency which is likely to compromise on the value of the same information for the company where he is working. So it is widely accepted that engineers have an obligation to keep this information of the employer, the client, secretive and confidential. That is what we mean. He should not reveal it, which could harm the interests of the organization for which he is working. So what is to be kept secret? We already discussed. Any proprietary information, whether it is disclosure to the competitors which could hurt the company where he is working, or it could be about any kinds of, there may be certain unethical practices, even these also should not be revealed outside. There may be, everything will not be hunky-dory within the organization. There may be certain compromises the organization is making, okay. Sometimes it may affect standards, but these things should be kept secret. The employees should not share them to the outside world because it compromises the credibility of the organization and it damages the reputation or the social standing or the standing of the organization in the market. So even such things should be kept confidential, and if the employee wants to do something about it, he should seek a redress within the organization by highlighting it to the people concerned to show that there are some unethical things or violation of standards or the qualities that needs to be safeguarded for improving the prestige of the organization or providing better quality of product. So this is something. So the right to secrecy is a very fundamental right for any organization, and employees are obliged to, when they accept the job, to keep information to which they have access by virtue of taking up the job, extremely confidential and secretive, so that it does not compromise on the interests of the organization. So when we say, suppose confidentiality, suppose a person who is working for a company X, after working for a period of time to improve his career prospects, moves to a company Y, then what should that individual do? Does it mean that even after leaving the organization, he is obliged to keep the information to which he was privy to in the previous organization, or whether he can share it with a competitor firm in which he has joined? So that is something still of a gray area, but we know that there is a soft boundary, okay, that involves both expertise and experience. By virtue of being experienced in a certain domain and working for a company X, if a chip making company X has employed a particular engineer, he works for 10 years in that, he gets a certain level of expertise, rises to a certain level of say managerial or executive position. After that he leaves the company X and goes to company Y, which has a rival company, and there he may go to a higher executive level job. So his experience and expertise gained over in the job in company X may actually be used to perform in the company Y at a higher level. But this is something nobody can prevent. This is still a gray area, but it is for the individual to decide. And however, the individual after leaving the company is not obliged to continue to be loyal to that company. He will obviously, when he joins another firm for his career, would have to be loyal to the organization, first loyal to the organization where he joins the new job. So this is something that is still unclear, but still it is left to the individuals how they want to conduct themselves. And then we talked about management policies. To keep these things confidential, it is not only the obligation of the individuals, but it is also the obligation of the management. The company which hires, they should have clear management policies, what is acceptable and what is not acceptable in terms of sharing information or divulging trade secrets or trade skills to the other firms. So when an organization hires an employee, there has to be clear terms of contract, and so that the employee understands what is to be kept confidential and what are the challenges involved in keeping the information or the expertise he has gained confidential. This is something we need to keep in mind. So coming to conflict of interest. What do we mean by conflict of interest? It is a situation in which a person or organization is involved in multiple interests. For example, if an employee is privy to some information, let's say somebody is making a chip and he has the inside information about chip manufacturing process, then by virtue of knowing that information, he or she may probably also share it with his wife or with his cousin who is also working in similar industry. So the wife or the cousin who comes to know about this manufacturing process or this product design may use that knowledge to, if the employee shares it with his cousin or with wife, may use that knowledge to start an own company and flourish in that business. So then it becomes a conflict of interest. So if you share information that could be potentially put to use by another firm to establish operations in it, then it harms the interests of the organization in which this employee is working. So this is what we mean by conflicting interests, where you have multiple. Sometimes you may be an advisor to that family business because that chip making company also belongs to your cousin or your wife, and you are working in another firm. So then that becomes conflict of interest, where one company is an established company, other company is a startup, but it could be a potential threat or competitor to this company in the future. So such kind of interest should not be taken up by an employee. He should be extremely careful. That is what we mean by maintaining confidentiality, and see that he doesn't get into a situation where there is a conflict of interest. And occupational crime. So talking about occupational crimes, employees, when they are working in engineering firms, they become expert at certain kinds of roles, and they get the authority to perform certain kind of jobs, duties. They interact with clients, they interact with contractors, they send out tenders, they procure materials, they procure designs, they meet government officials to clear their to get a no objection certificate. So there are many kinds of jobs that engineers as a part of organizations perform. So occupational crimes are those crimes where people of influence and authority may misuse that authority or influence for their own self-interest, to gain something that is not permissible as a part of their job. So an occupational crime may be committed, those which are wrong actions of persons through one's lawful employment. You perform something by virtue of being an employee. Okay, you use your job and you misuse your position of power to do something which is not in the interest of the organization. That is occupational crime. It could be defined as a crime by an employee to promote one's own or employer's interest. So you could, if you are in a recruiting, you are a HR, you could decide to hire if you are a HR, let's say in a IT firm, okay, the employer or the organization doesn't know who is coming to the interview, but you know that your cousin's daughter has been recommended by your cousin, though she is not suitable for the job. You misuse your power to see that she clears the interview, influence the decision making and give her a job at the cost of depriving it to someone else who is more deserving. So this is what we call as nepotism, or which is also considered to be corruption. So that is occupational crime. Or theft. Okay, people, for instance, civil engineers are known, they procure materials, civil engineers employed with the government, okay, carrying out PWD works, public welfare development works. So these people may pilferage the materials, government subcontracts and gets the material and hands it over. Many engineers may use that material for their own personal interest. They may take away some part of the material, sell it, or use the material to construct their own homes and so on. So theft, pilferage. Pilferage means taking away stationery, taking away things, consumables from the place where you are working without accounting. All these are occupational crimes. Or damage to properties of an employee's own organization. So all these are occupational crimes, and these are called as white collared crimes. Nobody can detect it because they are part of your jobs. There is no regulatory authority who can punish you or throw you into the jail for it, because nobody can, it is not even visible most of the time, but these are all occupational crimes. Another very, very serious offense is industrial espionage. That means where people join a rival firm or through some nexus, form establishment, through some nexus with another person working in a rival firm, may try to get some trade secrets or inside information. They spy on the other firms, spy on others, get information, confidential information, and use it for the benefit of their own company. So this is another. So espionage means spying, and it refers to secret gathering of information. So spying, espionage is okay in defense, where for surveillance to know the movement of the enemy troops, you may spy on the enemy camps, but spying on a competitor, a business competitor, is not acceptable. That is a occupational crime. Then price fixing. So when tenders and contracts are announced and sealed envelopes are given, okay, and sometimes what happens is the person who is calling for the tenders may want to favor some particular contractor, so he may share the quotation with him so that that person can quote a handsome price and get away with that bidding. So this is also called as price fixing, where you disclose some inside information to a person in an open auction and give undue leverage to one particular party over the others, and do not indulge in a transparent process for calling public tenders or even while public auctioning. So these are some of the occupational crimes that engineers could get into by virtue of the influence and the power and the authority they enjoy in organizations. So talking about the rights, we already discussed, engineers are also human beings, they are professionals, so they are entitled for some rights. So right to privacy, equal opportunity, non-discrimination, and we also discussed that engineers while exercising rights are also bound by certain ethical considerations, their professional ethics, and an engineer always has to negotiate between the two. Okay, what are his rights and what are his responsibilities, and not simply crave for entitlement of his rights, but also be mindful of the responsibilities. So talking about rights, intellectual property rights is a very, very important right. So an engineer by virtue of practicing his profession helps to design products, draw designs, okay, and improve processes. And so this knowledge or this skill that he has or invention that he has brought to the world, he has the ownership of it. And that is what we mean by IPR. So when engineers are working, they can safeguard themselves, their intellectual property rights, okay, by various means. What are the various means? They can protect it from being misused or by getting stolen by others, okay, through these forms. They can patent it. They can register the product or the service or the process or the improvement, innovation they have come up with. They can patent it, make it public and register it on their name, and if anybody wants to use that knowledge or that skill or that innovation, they need to pay him huge amounts in royalty for them to for any company or any other person to use it and adapt it to bring out a commercial product. So that is one. IPR, intellectual property rights, can be safeguarded by going for a patent, registering and claiming the ownership of it. And right now when you talk about patent, if you invent something new and if you are going for a US patent, when you patent it, you can have the ownership, the proprietorship of that particular technology or innovation you have come up with for almost 17 years. So till 17 years, if anybody wants to use it, they have to pay you royalties. And that is one way people become rich by virtue of inventing things. Another is copyright. So when we talk about copyright, it need not always be a product or it need not always be a technique. It could also be an idea, isn't it? It is also an exclusive right describing, okay, especially for literary and artistic works. Even for instance, if you have invented a new algorithm, you have written a new algorithm or you have invented a new language, okay, so that will come under copyright. If anybody wants to use it, then it can be safeguarded by registering it. So whether if you have written a great book, if you have come out with a great idea, if you have written a great code or great, okay, you can enjoy the copyrights by registering it against your name. And another is trademark. Trademark is nothing but a trademark or a hallmark is nothing but a particular logo or a particular insignia that a company uses to identify itself and to brand its products. So such trademarks can also be part of the IPR. So for instance, if you talk about certain kinds, if you talk about Levi jeans, Levi has a very interesting trademark. Or if you are talking about, for instance, LG, it has its own trademark. Or TCS, it has Toyota car, it has its own trademark. These are also exclusive property rights, intellectual property rights of engineering firms or of people. So this is another trademark. And trade secret, what do we mean by trade secret? Trade secret is different from patents. So you may have some specialized knowledge or a specialized innovation, but you may not register it. You may only keep it hidden or keep it a secret and not go public about it. So that is a trade secret, But trade secrets, however, are very vulnerable to be stolen by a competitor firm, and there is nothing but, there is no legal redress to it. If you keep a trade secret and you keep without patenting it or registering it against your name, if somebody steals it also, you cannot take a legal recourse to it and get your grievance settled. So trade secret is a formula or a practice or of a process, a design, okay, which is exclusive to the company which has produced it and which, okay, is kept secret. Like Coca-Cola, we know the company Coca-Cola, it has that magic formula to prepare that beverage, and that Coca-Cola formula even till today is not patented and it is considered to be the trade secret. The company has been successful in keeping it a secret for so many decades now. So we already discussed conflicts, okay, when people are working in engineering firms, big teams, small teams, there could be conflicts over schedules, priorities, work priorities, okay, assignment of personal resources, okay, or so technical solutions, or how administrative procedures, or simply interpersonal conflicts. Okay, so conflicts are a part and parcel of engineering firms because people are working in big and small teams, and large corporations may have many kinds of conflicts going on. So that is, so conflict, how do you do conflict resolution? People who are in managerial roles, okay, it is the responsibility to separate themselves from the problem, separate the people from the problem and see where is the root cause of the problem, why is the problem arising, where is the issue, how can the issue be resolved, and focus on the interests and not positions. Somebody who is doing conflict resolution should be non-partisan, unbiased, neither expressing favor or neither expressing, okay, disfavor to any of the parties. They should look at the problem as a whole and try to resolve it by separating people from the situation and see how the problem can be resolved. And they should be more based or oriented to see the outcome, or they should look at the result, how to get the result in spite of the differences, and that would help in the conflict resolution. And talking about conflict of interest, we have already discussed it. They arise from situations that, if pursued, could keep employees from meeting their obligations. So we also discussed occupational crimes. Okay, certain occupational crimes involves taking bribes, kickbacks. Okay, these are occupational crimes. So many people get confused between gifts and bribes and kickbacks. So kickbacks are nothing but you anticipate that you are going to get a deal, and so you pay the other party much more in advance, a certain amount of money, or guarantee that some amount will be paid if the deal goes through. So that is a much forward assurance of giving some. So for instance, you might have heard about the Rafale guns deal that Indian government was accused of. So where an arms deal was planned, and even before the deal went through, there was a scandal saying that some kickbacks were offered to the middlemen, and that is how the deal went through. So that is what you mean by kickbacks. And bribes, you know, okay, where an employee who is in a position of power may expect and may demand some amount of money or some favor for doing a certain job, which is actually a part of his professional duty or obligation. So that is, so you pay a bribe to get some work done. On the other hand, gifts is very legitimate. There is nothing wrong with taking gifts. Gifts is an amount or something given, a gift or money, or it could be in kind, given to someone in appreciation for helping to get a job done or in doing something. So there is a difference between bribes are something that a person demands to do something, and gifts are something the other person, the client or the beneficiary gives for in appreciation to the person who has helped him to get that job done. It is a very open and transparent thing, and the gifts are an accepted part of the business world. However, for bribes and kickbacks, people can be sued and there can be a legal recourse, and this is a kind of occupational crime, and sometimes people lose their jobs and they go through messy court battles. So these are some of the things we need to keep in mind when we talk about conflicts of interest. And finally, coming to discrimination. So we already discussed that when you talk about external responsibility and right, we already discussed neither should employers discriminate against on any factors, whether it is caste, race, age, gender, okay, religious affinity, okay. There should be no discrimination, and every engineer has the right to take a legal recourse if he or she feels that he is being discriminated against, or he is being denied an opportunity for growth or for employment based on these grounds, or if he is being harassed or okay, ill-treated on these grounds. So this is what we mean by right against discrimination. And coming to the end of it, so if some employees are working in a firm and they feel that the firm is not carrying out proper work, or the quality of the products or services that the company is providing to the customer or to the society, like building a public bridge, is not up to the mark, then the employees, we know, are bound by loyalty. They should not divulge this information to the public because it could compromise the credibility of the organization. But they should alert the higher members. First, they should take it up in their own organization to see that the deficiency or the non-ethical, unethical practice is being redressed or is addressed properly. If it doesn't happen, and if they still feel that the company is not listening or heeding to the employees' words and still pursuing in the unethical practices, then the employee can turn into a whistleblower. What is whistleblowing? Disclosure by the employee to the outside world channels about an actions, that something is not going right. We discussed the space shuttle Challenger disaster in the last unit. So had the ground crew which detected those deficiencies had alerted to the rest of the country, the nation, about the problem and how the upper layers of administration were putting pressure on them to launch the shuttle even though it was not launch ready, then if they had turned into whistleblowers, so many lives and so much of public assets, public money could have been saved and the disaster could have been averted. So that is what we mean by whistleblowing. When is whistleblowing acceptable? When there is some danger, when there is a potential harm to the society, it is very serious. When harm is documented, there are clear past histories where it shows that if a engineering process done this way could result in the collapse of that product or could result in the collapse of that bridge, and then they feel that they cannot get satisfaction, okay, by addressing, they are not able to draw attention of the administrative layers, and they do not get a satisfactory answer for the problem they have identified and brought it to the higher levels of the management. So then they can go for whistleblowing, and when they think that whistleblowing is actually going to help the situation, it is going to help in the alerting of the public or the society to the problem or the danger involved, and thereby the danger can be averted. All these instances become the moral guidelines for whistleblowing. Only in such instances an employee can break the code of loyalty and indulge in whistleblowing. So these are the standards an engineer is guided by depending upon which domain he is working. So electronics and electrical engineers follow the IEEE code of ethics, and there is the ASCE code of ethics, there is a software engineering code of ethics, and these are some of the professional bodies which engineers are guided by, and these are the professional fraternities which both protect and guide the engineers to conduct themselves in a ethical and in a following proper engineering standards. So with this we will close today's session. With this we come to the end of the 4th unit. Thank you all for your patient listening.